couple more logging in here. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we are just going to get started. It is 11:30. So agenda item, or do we need to take a roll? We took a recess. Do we need to take a roll call real quick? Or Sophia, could you take a roll call? Oh no, we're not making any motions or anything. We don't need to.
No,
we're not voting on anything. Okay.
I think
Yes,
if we can see, if we can see everybody on their video, I think we're okay.
Perfect.
I don't see Janet back, but we should really make sure we have a quorum for the meeting.
Yeah, we have a quorum. I see 5 of us right now. So agenda item 13. Are we doing roll call or not? No, there's Janet. Okay, we are good. So agenda item 13, discussion and possible action on separating branch 2 and 3 applicator examination and licenses. And I'm going to turn that over to Sophia.
Thank you. So at the board's request, this be added to the agenda. You wanted staff to look at the feasibility of separating the branch 2 and 3 applicator exam and license. In addition to that, this is also one of our strategic plan objectives. So let me start by giving you a little bit of history on when the two were combined. So during the board's 99-2000 sunset review, it was reported that the board at that time had 11 unique examinations, 3 applicator, 4 field rep, and 4 operator examinations. The applicant at the time had to select from which branch to be examined, and there was also an additional branch, which was branch 4, wood roof cleaning and treatment. The Joint Legislative Sunset Review Committee during the sunset at that time posed a concern to the board on the number of exams that were being administered and recommended that the board review the examinations and consider if any categories could be combined, or if any examination fees, or if the examination fees were adequate, excuse me. So they conducted an occupational analysis in 2000, and it revealed that branch 4, the wood roof cleaning and treatment, was no longer necessary. And the overall work associated with branch 2 and 3 lacked distinctions enough that it would not warrant 2 unique exams. As a result, the board decided to remove branch 4 and combined the applicator branch 2 and 3 categories into a single examination and eliminated, which as a result eliminated 4 associated examinations in total. Today, the board administers 7 examinations under branch 1, 2, and 3. OPES is with us today that can give you, that's going to give you, well, let me first say that we worked with OPES on this, and I believe the rationale for initially merging the branch 2 and 3 applicator exams in 2000 remains true today. OPES and board staff work continuously to ensure the examination is comprehensive and relevant. There was a recent occupational analysis that was finalized in December of 2022, and concepts that were not duly relevant to both branches were either revised or they were eliminated. The exam development for that occupational analysis is currently underway. So I'll go ahead and turn it over. We have Heidi that's with us from the Office of Professional. Is she, just want to make sure. Check.
I'm here. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
thank you. Sorry, I couldn't see you.
Yes.
She is a manager with Heidi Linster. She's manager with DCA's Office of Professional and Examination Services. And they are going to give a presentation on exam services relative to the entire exam process or development process, excuse me, and then specifically separating branch 2 and 3.
Excuse me for interrupting. I just think maybe before she gets started, for any of the board members that just need a refresher, branch 1, which isn't involved in this discussion, is fumigation. Branch 2 is your pest control that does ants, fleas, spiders, and rodents. And branch 3 is the termite. I just think that might be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have the slide presentation?
This is the moderator. I was under the impression that someone from OPES will be sharing their screen. If not, I do have the presentation loaded into WebEx.
Okay, that would be great if you could put it up. Great, perfect. Okay, thank you all for being flexible with the timing of this agenda item. Appreciate it. And as Sophia introduced me, I am Heidi Linster. I'm the chief of the Office of the Professional Examination Services, or OPS as we call ourselves, and some programs call us OPS, and that's okay. I have with me Ganesh Kumar and Amy Welsh-Gandy, who are the staff who work directly on your examination programs. We're happy to be here to talk about your programs and answer any questions that you have. Next slide. So we know you have some questions about the applicator examination, and we're going to answer those questions, but we also want to take this opportunity to give you an overview of OPES and what we do. So these are the topics that we're going to discuss in our presentation today, give you some background on OPES services and mandates, the examination development process, of course, the most recent applicator occupational analysis that we've completed, and the rationale for the combined applicator examination. Next slide. So OPES, we provide professional consulting services to DCA's boards, bureaus, and committees. And our examination validation work and the recommendations that we make are designed to ensure that examinations conform to professional guidelines and technical standards. Section 139 of the Business and Professions Code is our mandate and provides the guidelines for most of what we do, including the mandate was that OPS develop policies to ensure that DCA programs have valid and legally defensible examinations. Next slide. So more specifically, this slide shows how DCA and OPS have implemented the mandates of BPC Section 139. So 139 requires that licensing examinations be based on an occupational analysis of the profession and that licensing examinations meet technical standards for validity. Our policy OPS 2201 specifies that the standards that are important for our work are the 2014 standards published by the American Educational Research Association, the American Psychological Association, the National Council on Measurement in Education, and I know that's a mouthful, but we like that all of our programs to know that what we do is not just based on our opinion. It's based on research. It's based on many, many years of measurement in a variety of different fields. And so when we do make decisions, they're as research-based as we can get, and they're based on industry guidelines and technical standards. We also have Policy 2001, and that provides information on how we select subject matter experts, or SMEs, who participate in the examination development process. And then we have a DPM OPS 2201, and that provides examination security guidelines for all of DCA programs. Next slide. So we talk about SMEs, subject matter experts, we call them SMEs, and they play an essential role in licensing examination development and validation. SMEs are licensees who are in good standing with the board. We rely on SMEs to know what's happening in the profession and what kinds of knowledge and skills that a licensing exam should measure. So sometimes people think that OPS writes the exam questions. We do not. We facilitate the writing of the exam questions with SMEs. The board is primarily responsible for recruiting SMEs to participate in the licensing examination workshops. OPS assists boards with SME recruitment to ensure that they have training and resources to complete this important process. And our workshops, the workshops for your program, are facilitated by OPS staff. And as I mentioned earlier, I have Ganesh Kumar and Amy Welsh-Gandy here who facilitate the workshops for your program. Next slide. So note that the SMEs should represent the profession in California. They should reflect the diversity of the profession in terms of demographic variables, such as type of practice, location, ethnicity, and gender. It's especially important to have entry-level SMEs licensed 5 years or less. And in addition, board members and educators should not participate as SMEs. The reason for this is that board members may have undue influence during the workshop, and educators may have a conflict of interest. And I want to mention that your board works really hard to recruit SMEs that OPS needs to do our work. And although it is difficult given the nature of your profession, but we appreciate all the work that the staff does to try to get us the right number of SMEs for our workshops. Next slide. So every profession goes through changes. An occupational analysis should be conducted every 5 years to make sure that licensing examinations keep up with those changes. Although conducting an OA every 5 years is the goal, there are circumstances in which OAs are delayed. Sometimes boards don't have the money to perform the OA. Sometimes we have a difficult time getting SMEs, as in your program, we do. And most recently, we had a pandemic that affected some programs, including yours. So to keep those in mind, but 5 years is the goal. If we cannot conduct a full OA when the 5-year mark hits, we make sure to have SMEs review the existing examination outline to make sure it is still current. Next slide. So this is what we call the cycle of examination development. It shows that it's a continuous cycle, and the OA is typically the first step in the cycle, and it should be conducted every 5 years. The final result of the OA is an examination outline, and that shows what content should be assessed on the examination and how much weight should be given to each content area. The next steps are item writing, that means writing test questions, and item reviewing test questions using subject matter experts. Then an examination is constructed and the passing score is determined. Now for your program, the passing score is set in regulations. However, testing standards and guidelines recommend that the score be set using a standard setting workshop involving SMEs. And that's something we can discuss with your board at a future meeting if we can work on changing that regulation. Next slide. So after the examinations are administered, OPS uses examination and item analysis to ensure that the examinations are functioning as intended. OPS collects and analyzes data on how well candidates performed, both on the test as a whole and on individual test questions. So we look at how many candidates passed the test, how reliable is the test at determining who should pass and who should fail. Are any test takers behaving unusually or abnormally, meaning are they taking a lot of time to take the test or are they taking very little time to take the test? These are things that we investigate when we notice them. Regarding item analysis, we look at how many people selected the correct answer. Did the high scoring candidates select the correct answer? And did the low scoring candidates select the incorrect answers? If a test question is not functioning based on these statistics, then we remove it from the test and mark it for review and take it to a review workshop with subject matter experts. Next slide. So in summary, back to the occupational analysis, which is the foundation of all the work that we do. It has many purposes. One, it provides a description of current practice. 2, it provides the basis for legislation and policy. 3, it can provide the basis of job-related, fair, and legally defensible examinations. And finally, establishes examination validity by linking examination content to critical job competencies. So what it does is it makes sure that the test measures what the applicants need to know to effectively practice on the job to protect the public. And doing this research study, the occupational analysis, ensures that we are not testing on things that applicants don't need to know to do their job, and we are testing on all the things that they critically need to know to do their job. Next slide. So let's talk more specifically about the OA process we used in 2022 for the applicator examination. These are the steps that we followed. So we researched the profession and reviewed previous OAs. We conducted a town hall meeting with stakeholders, and that was requested due to concerns about the content of the existing applicator examination. We developed task and knowledge statements with applicator SMEs. So those are statements describing what tasks that applicators need to know to do their job and what knowledge do they need to know to perform those tasks. Then we reviewed those task and knowledge statements with Branch 2 and Branch 3 field representatives. And we developed the examination content outline with applicator SMEs. And finally, we documented the OA process. So I believe you have the memo documenting the process in your meeting materials. Next slide. So for your information, this slide shows the description of the applicator occupation from the Business and Professions Code. And you can see that applicators can work only for a Branch 2 or Branch 3 pest control company. They can't work on their own. And they're licensed and qualified by the board only to apply pesticides, rodenticides, or allied chemicals or substances for the purpose of eliminating, exterminating, controlling, or preventing infestations of pests or organisms included in Branch 2 or Branch 3 on behalf of a registered company. Also note that the knowledge specified here in it should say BPC, not BCP, sorry for that typo, in section 8564.5, it says, it indicates that Branch 2 or Branch 3 must have knowledge in pesticide equipment, pesticide mixing and formulation, pesticide application procedures, and pesticide label directions. And note that those were combined in the Business and Professions Code, indicating that they're very similar. Next slide. So this is the content areas for the applicator examination based on the 2022 occupational analysis. A new examination based on the 2022 examination and outline will launch October 1st of this year, 2023. Candidates will receive the full examination outline, including the tasks and knowledge statements in their candidate information bulletin. They will also receive a list of references to help them prepare. So this shows the basic content areas. There's 6 content areas, and these are just the headings of the content areas. I believe you have the full examination outline in your materials with the tasks and knowledge as shown. So this is the results of the occupational analysis. The weights come from our workshops and our stakeholder meetings, and that's where the weights were determined for how much weight to give to each area on the examination based on how important it is to practice. And also frequency, how frequently it's performed. Mm-hmm. Next slide. So as Sophia explained, the number of licensure examinations was reduced after recommendations from the Sunset Review Committee. At that time, Branch 2 and Branch 3 licenses and the examinations were combined. However, OPS had done previous OAs for Branch 2 and Branch 3 separately, and we showed that we did our process independently as if they were two separate licenses. And they did show that most of the tasks were very similar, but there were some differences in the knowledge depending on what type of pest you were treating. And when we did combine the two branches, all the tasks and knowledges were included. And as Sophia mentioned, we believe there was a lack of enough unique tasks and knowledges to create individual branch 2 and 3 examinations. The combined license allows applicators to work in both branches, which we understand is typical. And from a practical perspective, having one examination reduces exam development costs. In addition, we have a very hard time getting applicators to help with exam development as SMEs. So if we had to separate the two branches, getting enough SMEs would be even more difficult. Next slide. That's the end of our presentation, and now we'd be happy to take any questions.
I've got a couple questions. The parameters for the occupational analysis, it was stated that the peer group was entry level 5 years or less. Is that a regulation, or is that, how is that determined?
That's based on OPS policy that for selecting subject matter experts. So when I showed the OPS policies, it is OPS 2001, participation in examination development workshops. We specify that in order to make sure that examinations assess entry-level licensing duties, we need to have entry-level subject matter experts to determine what that level is. We have other people licensed more years as well, but we make sure we have some entry-level SMEs in there to make sure that we don't make the requirements too difficult.
I see, thank you. Also, it was stated that there's a group of licensees, branch 2 and 3, that were part of the subject matter experts. Were they branch 2 or 3, or did they field reps, or were they branch 2 and 3 field reps?
Both.
Most of them had held both licenses?
Yeah.
Yes.
Was it more than half, or the reason why I'm kind of looking into this is because, you know, when you have a combined license that does branch 3 and branch 2, or vice versa, there's no true way to gauge the actual field experience because time doesn't run concurrent. You know, I believe it's a disservice to the applicant and the future licensee to have it combined. You know, the subject matter for general pest is very extensive, more than enough data to create licenses and, you know, test questions. And as far as branch 3 work, it's very, you know, when you look at it a textbook point of view, the way the treatments, the way to mix chemicals, they're all the same, but to gain the actual field experience, it's apples and oranges. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 2 separate licenses.
Well, I think that's true at the branch 2, at the field rep level. Yes, at the field rep level for sure. That's definitely true. However, at the applicator level, because they don't do the pest ID, a lot of it, you know, when we did the occupational analysis, it just ended up that the tasks were very, very similar.
Yes, I understand that, but there's no way to gauge, you know, once a person is given an applicator's license, there's no way to gauge how much time they have for the other branch. You know, they might be doing, 20%, branch 3 and 80%, branch 2, but then there's no way to measure the time to show that they actually have the needed field experience to apply for a field rep. And then they're getting the field rep license and they're not having the fundamental actual field experience that they need.
That's more of a licensing question as far as the experience.
Yeah, so, that's why if the licenses were separated, this way people would be able to get the needed time. That was...
Yeah, John, I think I like that you're bringing that point up. One, I want to say thank you so much, Heidi. That was really informative. So that was great to see that whole process. I think, John, I agree with you on why you're wanting to see that, but I think that in the application process for the field rep, that's why they're listing their specific job duties, and that what they're applying chemicals, just part of it, whether it was branch 2 or branch 3, and that I agree. I mean, knowing what you need to know for a branch 2 applicator out there is way different, a lot more than a branch 3 applicator. I mean, the only harm I see is that, hey, branch 3 applicators are now having to know a lot more than they would if they just need a branch 3 applicator, but I'd rather someone get their license and have more to go through, like more knowledge than less knowledge, right? So I don't see, I'm okay with, especially after the presentation on them staying one test providing both, it's to the favor of the consumer that a branch 3 person also obviously has to know some branch 2 information. And yes, I think in the description of when you're filling out your application for the field rep, you're having to put your job duties, what kind of work did you do is where that's going to determine. I don't think that has anything to do with OPES and the test taking part.
That's fine. I do have a question about the breakdown for the examination outline. Long ago, there was multiple categories, and you had to pass each section 70% in order to acquire the license. Now everything is lumped into one group, pass or fail. Has it ever been looked at to separating, there's a law section and then there's a technical section or other?
Yes, that is a possible way to develop an examination. However, typically you need a longer examination to make sure that each section is valid and reliable on its own. For licensure, for DCA licensure, we use the model of you need to pass the entire test. And this allows some flexibility in that if you are weak in some area, you can, and stronger in another, you can still meet the minimum requirements.
Do we know when that changed from each section being 70% to the total test being 70%? Was that 10 years ago or something? Do we know?
No, it has never been that from OPES. It may have been that when it was developed by DPR.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did OPES take it over?
2016, right? 15?
No, we had it before that.
Yeah.
My staff is saying 2015, but I will tell you, when I worked here in the 90s, I worked on your test. So dating myself in maybe 94, 95.
And then in 2006,
Then it went back to DPR. So we got it from DPR. Then it went back to DPR. in when, 2006, and then came back to us in 2015. But
Okay,
OPS
so but
does
there
not
was a
develop.
period of
Yes. Right.
there was a period of time though where each section was on its own. You had to pass each section at 70%, not the total test, correct?
That could have been from DPR. Not OPS does not develop any tests that way.
Okay. Are there any boards that do it that way, or is every board just total examination?
Not any tests that OPS develops. There are some national examinations that have, many sections that have people take the test in sections, but they're like 100 item per section. They're very, that would be like chiropractors, medical exams, or maybe architects. So for national exams where they have a very lot of content, they have big sections, but not for DCA based exams.
And I think, John, I love that you brought that up, John. Just bringing it up, we've had cases where someone knows every single thing about our industry and is great out in the field, but completely lacking law and regulations. And we're like, oh my gosh, how's this person running a business? So I think, John, you brought that up because of cases we've seen in the past, so that makes sense. But thank you for clarifying that, Heidi. I didn't know if it was half of the boards have each section graded, and we just decided at some point to go as an overall. But it sounds like everything you guys are doing is the overall test score.
I've got some feedback on the ag side of the business from DPR. The testing's completely different. You have a rules and regs or laws exam, and then you have a category to upgrade to acquire a license. I think the focus, is public health and safety, protecting the public and ensuring that our licensee knows the regulations. And you could get a perfect 70% technically and not get anything in the laws, and the person's licensed. I think there should be a division, to hold licensees accountable. So this way they know when to renew their license. They know how many hours to get their license. They could be a perfect worker, but they're going to miss steps.
Well, for some programs, we have a separate law exam. That's 100 items just on laws, but I don't think that your program would warrant a test that long just for laws. Am I correct, Ganesh?
Yes.
Well, I think if we had an exam that focused on laws, it might reduce the violations. And it would,
I think, John, if you're referring to operators license, you've got a point there. I think on applicators and field rep, no.
Just for a field,
not as much.
Yeah, just for a field rep. We've had cases where the licensee didn't know when to renew his license. He didn't know how many hours to renew his license. At least from a field rep and an operator,
we do cover those. Yes, those are on the test, but just because they're on the test doesn't mean they got them correct, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. But if there was a designated section that they passed with 70%, it would increase the odds that they would at least be mindful about it versus, a 20% chance on the exam. That's my whole point. I'm trying to figure out, we can put mechanical things in place to help reduce violations. And I think that's a key component from that point of view.
All right. Yeah, thank you, John. I think that's something that the board needs to discuss. I think Heidi from the putting the exam together. I think we're asking her almost a question that I think the board needs to discuss. But I love the input. Do we have any more questions for Heidi in regards, like, I mean, I know it's specifically into putting the test together and performing the testing, the examinations. Like, in 2022 is when we last changed the applicator's license, correct? I think that's what you had said. And what kind of, and I know earlier you had said we had a hard time getting SMEs. Do we know what I mean, I'm sure our staff knows what kind of result. Did we have 3 or 4 SMEs show up? Did we have a dozen candidates to choose from? What did that look like when we did that in 2022?
It was combined. We combined it with branch 2 and branch 3. Are you working only for applicator? We combined it with all the different branches. So we were able to get
let's promote Ganesh as a panelist so he can answer that. Oh, did you answer?
So we were able to get enough SMEs because we had at the town hall meeting, there was recommendations made to actually include field reps also as part of SMEs. And coincidentally, pandemic came in and we had to do that because we couldn't get just applicators on their own. So we did have a combination of applicators and field reps from all branches except excluding branch 1. So we were able to get at least a good 6 in each different branches as we went through the process. So on an overall, we had at least, I think, 29 or 28 SMEs on an overall for all the workshops together. Hopefully, if there was no pandemic, we could have got more, but maybe it will change as we go through and recruit more SMEs.
Okay, so you said 28 to 29 total between the workshops for the license, for the examinations.
That for this occupational analysis.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if it was 3 or 4 people or 28 or 29. I was wondering who you guys were saying. Since COVID, we had a hard time on that. So, any other from the board members? Any other comments or questions since we have them here to answer on the test? Also, nothing, Janet, from industry? No. Janet, what, I mean, can you give us, I guess I'm going to specifically call you out, sorry, just because you're in the industry and have people taking the test. I mean, feedback, and I think we're specifically talking about applicators' license here, but since we've got them here, any questions or feedback?
Are we saying feedback with it staying combined 2 and 3 versus separating it? Or just the test?
I think that's what we're specifically. Well, I think that's what we're specifically talking about. I mean, if you have something else additional, but.
Well, I mean, I see a reason for separating it because a branch 2 technician is going to go out and perform duties very different to what a branch 3 technician is going to do. So if the test was geared with more questions towards each person's job, meaning a branch 3 technician is going to do a local drywood termite treatment, or they're going to do a soil treatment. Those parts are different, where branch 2 is going to be setting up rodent and snap traps, etc. You know, treating for yellow jackets and all the things that fall under their license that are different. And then when it does come to rules and regulations, that part is the same. So I think it's a good idea to separate because of that reason.
Okay. I love the thank yous for the whole update too. Like in 99, 2000, they were separated and we decided to put them together because to make it easier on the process. And here we are 23 years later saying, let's separate them again. They are way different. So how does that, any more discussion from any board members on that? No? Okay. And then I don't know if I'm asking Sophia, was this just a discussion or were we looking at taking like a vote, making a motion to do something? I mean, what's that process look like?
Was for discussion, and if the board members wanted to take action, they can. it's not necessary, but the board can take an action if that's what they want to do, to direct me to do something differently.
I'd like to.
I will
Would you like to
say,
make a motion?
I will,
Go ahead.
just for additional information, I will say that for the occupational analysis and exam development on the applicator examination, for each exam, we're looking at approximately $90,000. Just for informational purposes, so you have that.
Are you saying to separate it? That's what it would cost?
To create a separate exam, yes.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, I completely agree with you, John. I completely agree with you, Janet, in the sense of how different they are but that's why they are applicators and not field reps. That's why they're not able to identify anything. And that's why that's why the field rep is broken out, because as soon as you get to starting to identify and you're basically on your own identifying and stuff, you're taking a separate exam for that. So I think that, the only upside I see to separate, I would be against separating them. The only reason I would say to separate them would be, man, I'd really like to hire a branch 3 applicator and have them be able to pass the test this first time and not have to know all this stuff about branch 2 work, would be the only upside I could see for me, for the industry. I don't see how it protects the consumer. I mean, if you're having to take, there's going to be a lot of questions on the test related to branch 2 stuff when all you're wanting to get is branch 3. But at the end of the day, are we protecting the consumer more because the person's having to study that much more, know that much more in case we want to jump them over to doing branch 2 stuff? So.
I mean, the other side to that too is, as an employer, if I have branch 2 employees doing this work over here and applicators, and branch 3 applicators over there, suddenly we have a great big job that we could pull more help in. As an employer, I can pull them back and forth, and that's helpful because they're a licensed applicator without being a specific branch. So that's the benefit from my perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, if you, as far as protecting consumer, I mean, so I get my guy, being in the industry, I've got a guy who's a branch 3 applicator. He's out spraying chemical for termites, and all of a sudden I need him for pest control because my guy calls in sick. Am I going to all of a sudden, hey, you know what? You already know how to spray chemical. You got your branch 3 applicators. Let me send you over to go do this pest route, which he shouldn't be doing as far as consumer protection because he doesn't have his branch 2 applicator. That would start happening possibly. So I'd rather them have to jump through and take, learn, if you're out spraying chemical, you should know everything of, on spraying chemical, even unfortunately, if you're not going to be doing much branch 2 work and there's questions on the test related to branch 2 stuff. I mean, that's a bummer, but I'd rather more than less as far as protecting consumer.
Yeah, I think you brought up a great point. It's the experience part that I'm trying to focus on. Experience doesn't run concurrent. So when you're specializing it, you're going to have your mentors focusing on the specialization of it. But
aren't you having to put that on? So you're saying someone gets their, they get their applicators, they're out for the next 2 years just doing termite treatments. And now all of a sudden they're applying for a field rep branch 2 to your case, even though they've only been doing termite treats, branch 3 type of applicator work. Now they're applying for their branch 2. Well, I mean, in their application, they're going to have to show that they've got they can't just put, all I've done is branch 3 termite treats and get their branch 2, hopefully.
Well, I mean,
you want to, Ganesh, do you want to comment on that? Were you wanting to comment on that, Ganesh? We can't hear you. You're muted. if you are talking, you are muted. There, we can hear you now.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, when we're talking about the exams, we had practical exams also once upon a time. I heard a lot of SMEs telling me that. I just thought I'll just put that out in the open there, where they had to actually go and do a practical identification or about equipments or whatever. I don't know what it was, but it was one of those components involved in it for all the branches when the exams was conducted a long time ago.
Okay.
But Kyle, also to the point that John is making, if I am an applicator and I do primarily branch 3 work and all of a sudden I want to go get a branch 2 field rep license, doesn't my qualifying manager have to sign off on that? Meaning there's some responsibility from the qualifying manager to say, oh yes, this person should be allowed, or you're giving your stamp of approval to go take the test. So there's another step in between an applicator in branch 3 being able to just go take a branch 2 field rep. Correct, Sophia?
Yes.
This is Melissa, if I could chime in on that.
Please.
Please.
So yes, the QM of the company would be required to sign off on the experience. Now, please remember the applicator is an entry-level license. Now, as far as the field rep experience goes, for branch 2, they are required to have 40 hours minimum. For a branch 3, it is 100 hours minimum. So even if they don't have years of experience as an applicator, technically they would still qualify as long as they have that 1 week or that 100 hours of experience in those branches. And the qualified manager would be authorized to sign off on that experience.
But I think the question is, what if the qualifying manager knew that this technician really had spent only time, even if it's 200 hours, as a branch 2 technician? Is the qualifying manager obligated to sign off if he wants to go take an exam in the opposite branch?
So if the qualified manager is not able to prove that that the company provided that experience to that employee, the full experience, the minimum 40 or the minimum 100 hours, then they would not be authorized to sign off, and they should not be signing off.
Right.
And if board questioned that experience, they would need to be able to provide proof of that experience.
I got a great example. So, we have our termite applicator, doing, drill and treats, trenching and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, he gets a phone call. Hey, someone called out sick. I need you to do restaurant work. Just spray the chemical in the restaurant, hit the baseboards and, yada, yada, yada. Okay, no problem. And he doesn't have the practical experience, and a negligent application is made.
I mean, I think that's the responsibility of the business owner. I would never send one of my branch 3 guys to go to a restaurant. I would reschedule that job. I mean, that is my company's opinion.
I understand that, but if there is the division, then that would never happen. That's my whole point.
Yep, you're right.
Yeah, but if the test is one test, they would have the knowledge because that's on the test. We're not taking out that knowledge of branch 2 work out of the test. So, I mean, there's more chances. I guess my thought would be if it stays that way it is now, they would at least have the basic knowledge because it is on the test of this branch 2 work. That in your scenario, they only have the branch 3 applicators. If the business owner is willing to send them over to this restaurant, knowing they don't have the skill set to do that, they're probably also going to send them over there with only their branch 3 applicators and not their branch 2 applicators. And it's even worse. Why not let them have the knowledge of both branches if they possibly might be, going from a termite treat over to a restaurant? So, I mean, I guess based on what you said, like I would rather the scenario you gave, I'd want that person to, yeah, they're always going to be doing my termite treats, but in case I have to send them over to the restaurant, let's make sure that they've got enough knowledge in branch 2 from that test. And that's why they should be combined. I mean, I see both sides of it, John. I'm not at all like, I'm 70%, 75% of me is saying, hey, keep it the way it is. And you're bringing up some points where I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why they're separated. I don't think it's worth it was before they were separate. In 2000, they put them back together. And I don't want to say, because of the cost, because I think there's no cost to put on consumer protection. So I'm not saying that, but with the $90,000 to get it separated, and I don't see why. So, I mean, we can make, I think I don't need to make the motion. I mean, any board member can make a motion to it. We can take a vote on it if we want, or we could leave it open for further discussion.
I'd like to vote on it.
Okay. So why don't you make a motion then? You want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to separate the branch 2 to branch 3.
Okay. Would someone like to second that motion?
I just want to make, this is just about the test, right? So there would be 2 separate tests.
Just about the test.
Okay.
Would someone like to make a second on that?
I believe it would also separate the license.
Yes, yes, there would be 2 separate applicators licensed as well as, so it's not just the test. You're separating the test and you're giving now a branch 2 applicator's license and a branch 3 applicator's license, not just an applicator's license in general.
Correct.
This is Sabina, but this agenda item is not agendized. It is agendized only to discuss the examination, not anything else.
So by you saying, what are you saying, Sabina? Can he not make a motion to separate the test?
No, absolutely on the examination, but we can't talk about how or what license types might look like, because
it's the item says examination and licenses.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the memo.
That's okay.
Because the memo said something different.
Okay.
Discussion and possible action on separating the branch 2 and 3 applicator examination and licenses.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I looked at the wrong, the memo.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so John has made a motion to separate the branch 2 and branch 3 applicator examination and licenses. Is there anybody who wants to second that?
I'm sorry, can I chime in? This is Melissa. It wouldn't, I believe it would just be like the field rep and operators now. Well, you wouldn't actually have a separate license. You would just have an applicator, and you can opt to take branch 1 exam or branch 2 exam or a combination, or you could take, both. So then when you have, say you get an applicator branch 2 license, in the future, you could opt to take the branch 3 applicator exam, and then it would upgrade to include branch 3. So you would still only have that 1 license.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. I thank you for the clarification. I think that we're in agreement to that.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you meant it would be like somebody would have 2 separate licenses if eventually they had a branch 2 and a branch 3 applicator.
No, it'd be just like the field rep now. I mean, you get a branch 2 field rep, and then you would just upgrade to have it be a branch 2 and 3 field rep, but they are separate. If you have a branch 3 applicators, you would not be able to do applications for branch 2 work unless you went and upgraded and took a branch 2 examination. Okay.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm.
No, thank you. Okay, so I'll ask again if somebody wants to second that, or we can, I don't know, Sabina, you can walk us through. If nobody seconds it, do we remove the motion, or how that works?
Yeah, the motion will die on its own if it's not seconded.
Okay. All right, so I'll ask one more time if there's a second. Otherwise, it'll the motion will die, and we can talk about it further and put it on another agenda? Okay, so the motion is been removed or died, and we can bring it up at another, put on another agenda item or discuss it further, John. Thank you for bringing it up, John, though.
Thanks.
Okay, so that was agenda item 13. Any more questions or comments on agenda item 13? And then do we have to, because it was just discussion, do we have to open it up to, I guess every item we want to open up to the public comment?
Yeah, it'd be best practice.
Okay. David, could you open that up?
Absolutely. We are now accepting public comment on the matter. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. Dial in users. Please dial *3 to raise your hand. You may also type the word comment in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send that comment to all participants. And our first request for comment comes from 5 Roy. Hold on just a moment. I'm going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. Or S. Roy, my apologies. S. Roy, we're going to send you another request to unmute your microphone. All right, let's move along to Jim Steed, and we'll come back to S. Roy in a moment. All right, Jim, we've sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you, board. Thank you for another great discussion. Just 2 thoughts as you guys have been mulling this around. And one is that I want to help remind folks to remember that we have a lot of small operators. So, a vast amount of our industry is 1 and 2 operators. And when you're a branch 2 operator, you probably don't have a branch 3 component to your business, which means if you're trying to hire a new applicator, you don't have a lot of framework for training that person and preparing them for the test. And you will probably likely never have the need for them to do the branch 3 work. So what that means is that the branch 3 content in the test becomes an obstacle. And it's really tough when you're a small business and you prepare an employee and they go to take a test and they come back and the branch 3 stuff trips them up because you may not have been able to help prepare them as well for the test. So I'd ask you to kind of consider that. Secondly, I think there may be a chance to improve consumer protection by splitting the test. If you divide this test, what will happen is you will be able to have more questions based on your primary area of focus. That means if you're branch 2, you're going to have more questions that are just branch 2, not diluted by branch 3 questions that you probably won't need to be dealing with very often, which means the stuff that you're doing every day, you're going to be more prepared for. So I would just ask you to kind of consider both of those things in looking at separating them. For me, I got in the industry in 1993 when they were separated, and I think it added a little more clarity. As I have a medium-sized business, I've enjoyed what Kyle has described, being able to have folks that you can move around, and that's kind of helpful, but it's maybe not quite as helpful to everybody on the smaller side of the industry. So appreciate the chance to comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. You brought up some really good points there.
All right.
Do we have, did S. Roy want to comment?
We're going to go back to sroy.email@gmail.com. We're going to give you an opportunity to unmute again. If you are unable to unmute, then I will simply read what is written, and hopefully that will suffice. All right, S. Roy. What was written? Was the difficulty getting applicators due to the low reimbursement, or the cost of lost revenue to the companies they work for? Question mark.
Hi, this is Christina. I think I can speak to that answer. It was a combination of the applicators and or all SMEs for all recruitment types. The companies not having the time or staff to let them go for the amount of time for holding those workshops. But I believe since the COVID pandemic, there are some workshops that are now going to be offered remotely, which will eliminate the need for travel, which should help with recruitment in the future. We haven't had the opportunity to experience a workshop like that just yet, but we will in the future. So I'm hopeful that workshops in the future will, or I should say recruitment for workshops in the future will become a little bit easier. As far as reimbursement per diem, we actually have it pretty consistent with other programs in DCA. So if that is a concern, maybe that's something we discuss in the future. But that has been changed significantly since the start of working with OPES. If there's any other questions or if I didn't hit on exactly that question, I'd be happy to reiterate anything else.
I think you answered that perfectly. So, I mean, if there's any other comments, or if he had if Esroy put a question in there again or commented on that, but I think that answered it.
There are no other requests for comment at the moment.
I've got feedback.
Oh, go ahead.
I've experienced exactly what the previous caller stated. I worked for only a branch 2 company, and the field rep test was too hard, so we sent him for an applicator's exam and came back frustrated because there was so much branch 3 questions on there, for what it's worth.
This is Heidi. Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Yes.
As we were telling you in the presentation, we have recently updated the examination. So I appreciate the input that we're receiving but that's about previous examinations. And we've made an effort to ask questions that are entry level branch 2 and branch 3 subject matter experts think are fair and necessary to do either job. So we worked hard not to ask questions that are very deep into the different branches. Does that help? So I would like people to wait for the new exam to come out and then maybe talk to your employees and get their feedback to see if the test is improved.
And this test comes out in October, Heidi, correct?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Awesome. I mean, that's what I was going to say is obviously we can't just, you can't just share the test with all of us, but I'd have to see the test. I mean, knowing that you guys just updated it in 2022, have that in consideration. If I had taken the test in the last 2 years or had taken the newest test and saw that, oh my gosh, it's really concentrating on branch 2 or branch 3, I think I'd be able to make a lot more comments on it. So hopefully we did a good job with SMEs and this new provision. So I would say we bring it up and let's have the test. It's going to be coming out in October, and we bring it up in a meeting, future meeting sometime middle of next year to see what kind of feedback we get from the test takers. And passing rate, right? We'll have all the scores on that as well. Okay, any other comments on that? Otherwise, we'll move to the next agenda item.
No.
Okay, so agenda item 17, licensing update. Kind of going down that path.
Okay, let me turn my video on. Okay, hello. Melissa Zanetta here, board staff. Just giving you an update on licensing. Please refer to your board meeting materials in agenda item number 17. The enclosed statistical report provides a comparison of licensing statistical data for the fiscal month of May for the fiscal years 21-22 and 22-23. Also there you will find the results of our most recent licensing survey. In looking at the data, nothing really out of the ordinary in the data, but I do want to point out that the decrease identified in licensing renewals this May compared to last May was unfortunately as a consequence of DCA's print vendor technical difficulties. As I'm sure some of you industry members may be aware, there was some issues with printing of our renewals in April, which caused some delays. So that is why there is a decrease for the month of May. At this point, all renewals have been sent out. To date, we have received back now approximately 1,500 renewals. It has really been all hands on deck at this point to quickly get them processed. We're having to do a bulk of those in-house because there was also another issue with the barcodes not being printed the first time around. So many of the industry members will have noticed that they got 2 renewals this year. So at this point, it's like I said, all hands on deck, and we're doing the best that we can to get through these as quickly as possible. But I just want to kind of identify that decrease because it is a substantial decrease. So this experience has really highlighted the value of modernization, which brings me to the next item, Connect implementation. We are currently working with developers on the design and release of our new platform called Connect. If all goes as planned, we hope to have our first release in late November this year. So be on the lookout for additional information on this rollout. Modernization efforts will streamline pretty much all internal and external processes to greatly improve the operational efficiency. So we were all really excited to work closely with the developers and roll out this new software. Does anyone have any questions on either item?
Yeah, I do in regards to where are we at with that? I mean, for the month, as far as license renewal, seeing that obviously we had basically 0 license renewals. Where,
Yes.
like, are we getting caught up? Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so right now we have approximately 1,500 renewals that have come in and made it through cashiering. So we are actually kind of at the point now where we're aligned with our May numbers for last year. Actually, we're over that. So May of last year, we had 1,036 renewals in. Right now, we have about 1,537 in the system that have been processed. But we also do have a stack that we're working through that are not currently processed. So those, like I said, all hands are on deck right now, but we're getting there.
Okay, and do we have an idea of do we have anybody right now that's like, you know, hey, it's been 3 months and I still don't have my license renewal. It's been 4 months that I applied for a field rep. My concern would just be that a backlog of someone waiting for their license, being frustrated, like I passed the test or I'm waiting for my renewal and it's been 3 months now.
So as far as the backlog in printing, all the renewals, of course, have went out. We had sent out information on our social media and email blast in regards to the process for requesting renewal for if they didn't get it. I know we are still getting some calls here and there saying, I didn't get it. And it usually is because they didn't update their address, which is a big thing. But that's an every year occurrence. That's nothing new. So we're getting people what they need when they request it. If anybody still didn't get it, we definitely want to know. They can email us, call us, and we can get them what they need. But at this point, they have been sent 2 copies. So if they didn't get it, chances are it's because they did not update their records.
Okay, so we feel like we're caught up.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, all the renewals have went out. They've been out now for a couple. Where are we? They've been out for a few weeks. When they're starting to come in, we've gotten lots of returned, of course, renewals like we normally do, which was a good sign because that means that they've all went out at this point. So we're just
Okay.
waiting for
And then-
more to come in.
I'm sure we're going to go over it a little bit on agenda item 19 on outreach and communication update, but you made the comment of through social media and email blast, you would let the licensees know that the printer had gone out and that stuff. Did we get any feedback from that? Did it go out to 8 people? Like, you know what I mean? Like what, because it's new and we were so outdated, what did that look like? Was it a success?
Yeah, so that is going to be something that is more than likely addressed when we go in to discuss outreach, I believe, with Christina. But I don't know, Christina, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, that will be discussed during agenda item 19. So.
Okay, we'll just discuss it then.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board for Melissa?
I just want to say to the people that aren't industry, we have to send checks in. They have to load certain things to our account. Now, the fact that they're going to be able to do this online, and I'm guessing it will be immediate, and specifically just loading up for our, our termite report stamps, still call them stamps. Bravo to the board. Thank you so much for making our lives easier.
Yes, thank you. This is going to be huge.
For sure.
Okay. Comments from the public on licensing?
We are accepting public comment on licensing. If you would like to make a comment, tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand. You may dial *3 if you're a dial-in user to raise your hand. And you may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. We're going to take just a couple of seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, would you like to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you. So let's go to agenda item 18, enforcement update. And it looks like I'm turning that over to you, Melissa, again.
No, enforcement, I'm going to go ahead and go over.
Okay.
Kathy Boyle is the chief of enforcement, and she unfortunately was unable to attend the meeting. She's out of the office. So I'm going to cover this item. The enforcement statistics report is included in your materials as attachment 1, and it provides the complaint intake numbers, investigations, transmittals to the Attorney General's office, citations that were issued, and investigative fines assessed for the current fiscal year. And they're broken down by quarter. For quarter 3, which is January through March of 2023, there were 70 complaints received, 226 convictions or arrest notifications that were received. And we did see 24% decline in complaints filed compared to last fiscal year, this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year at this moment. For WDO numbers, you'll see those on the report filed per month for this fiscal year. They are down approximately 13% through May of 2023 compared to May of 2022. The decrease in filings may be a result of the California housing market. So according to the California Association of Realtors, single-family home sales are projected to be down 7% this year from last year and 26% down from 2021. So I think that might be a contributing factor to why those WDO numbers are down. Other than that, everything else looks normal, business as usual. Do we have any questions on the enforcement update?
The only question I had was just the time, but it looks like it's pretty consistent. Typically from the time one opens to, from a case, an investigation opening to average days of close, it's 500, it's over a year. Is that pretty common?
For attorney general cases?
No, I mean, it's just under investigation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
The target's 180 days, but we're at 514 days, it looks like, on average.
Yes, that's what we're looking at. And it's pretty.
Is that because we're behind on staff, or?
It's consistently been on average around that number. Something that I'm really trying to work closely with enforcement unit, with the specialists, on how they're working their cases, what the reasons are behind maybe, the aging on some of these cases. So it is definitely a focus of mine right now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was the only question or comment I had on that. Any other questions, comments from the board on enforcement? No? Can we open it to the public, please?
We are now accepting public comment on enforcement. If you would like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users, please dial *3. Or if you would like to type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, please do that now. We're going to take just a couple of seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Okay, agenda item 19, outreach and communication update. I don't know if that's Christina or Heather.
Hi, that'll be me, Heather. So I'm excited to announce that we have officially rolled out the board's first ever outreach program. Our communication plan includes key components of email communications, the listserv as we spoke about earlier, partnerships, live events, speaking engagements, as well as social media and a relaunch of the board's newsletter. I will highlight the first few areas of the plan, and then I will turn it over to Christina to provide updates on social media and newsletter. First, we have email communications. We're leveraging our listserv platform to push large-scale email communications out to licensees, consumers, and our stakeholders. Starting March 24th of this year, we began reaching out to newly licensed individuals with information on how to connect with the board on social media, how to subscribe to our mailing list to stay up to date on important information, as well as direct links to resources on the board's website. On June 2nd, we sent a very similar email to all active licensees with emails on file, which was approximately 12,000 individuals. The response was positive. We saw a significant increase in traffic and followers on our social media accounts. Christina may talk about that a little more later on the social side of things. As far as our licensing printing issues, there was an initial notification sent out to the licensees who were set for renewal this year. It was approximately 4,000 emails that were sent out, and as well as a follow-up once printing had restored to let them know it's coming and what to expect and how to move forward with if you need to print off online your status since you won't have your printed card. Response on that was questions about how to go online and check their license status. Our office staff was very helpful in providing that information, both in email and over the phone. It seems like things are underway and less questions now about that. And we are also planning to do some more outreach and kind of video examples and demonstrations on how licensees can go on and actually do that moving forward. There may be some videos coming forward on that. In terms of partnerships, one of the board's strategic initiatives is aimed to establish relationships to educate real estate agents on the role of WTO reporting. Another very exciting announcement is that we have been in contact with the Department of Real Estate Communications Office, and they've actually offered us a spot in a future newsletter to provide information to their audience. They're also working on informational efforts for first-time homebuyers and have asked us to provide content from the lens of a pest control professional. Some potential topics for this include what to look for when buying a home and the importance of having a pest inspection. We look forward to developing and maintaining these kind of relationships to ultimately have a well-rounded perspective on our industry as well as those that are adjacent to us. Live events and speaking engagements. Another strategic initiative for the board is to increase participation at in-person events to create positive awareness of the board and establish relationships. On March 28th of this year, our Chief of Enforcement, Kathy Boyle, and Specialist Tom Eineken attended the UC Riverside Urban Pest Management Conference. And last week, the 21st through the 23rd, Sophia, Tom, and I attended the PCOC Expo. It was a great event. Sophia was on the Industry Meeting of the Minds panel and provided an update on the board, including efforts to digitize and streamline our processes. And in a breakout session, Tom provided a continuing education course on WDO reporting. So exciting things. We look forward to more future events coming up. And we are working with our partners to see if there's more opportunity to get out there in person and interface with our stakeholders. And that concludes my section of the Outreach and Communication update. So I will turn it over to Christina, who is our newsletter committee chair and social media expert.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to start with social media. So just wanted to give an update that the board has partnered with DCA's Office of Public Affairs to create the board's first strategic communication plan, which is aimed to educate and engage consumers and licensees who have an interest in our program. We were able to establish accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And on February 27th, the board released its first post on all platforms. Inside your materials, you'll have two reports. The first one is the social media account statistics, and that includes just the current amount of followers for each account and some demographics that are based on age and gender for Facebook and Instagram. Unfortunately, Twitter does not provide demographics at this point. And then moving on to the newsletter, as part of the board's strategic plan, was to relaunch the board's newsletter. So we have created an internal committee of staff who have volunteered to help with this process. We have a representative from each unit within the board. So for licensing, we'll be assisting, Frank Munoz will be assisting with the licensing unit. For enforcement, Holly Glassner will be helping. For WDO, Ronnie O'Flaherty. Myself will be for admin. And then we have specialists, Tom and Eichen, who will be helping with some more technical items that we wish to include in the newsletter. Right now, we have had our first kickoff committee meeting earlier this month, and we were able to discuss topics, potential topics to be included in our first issue. Right now, our goal is to launch our first issue in January of 2024. So we are working on creating content as well as working with the department, DCA's design and editing unit to help create a new revamped version of the exam with regards to the design of it. We are looking at multiple options for distributing it, but will likely be a web-based type of newsletter where it will be interactive, so the user can click on links so we can provide resources that way through the newsletter to the industry and consumers as well. Real quickly, some of the topics of discussion to be included in future newsletters with regards to, I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. I left off legislation and regulation. That will be Heather's area of the newsletter as the representative. So with that, legislation and regulation will include topics of board positions, new laws. When it comes to licensing, we're considering having like a frequently asked questions section, renewal reminders, and also including updates on the Connect updates or the Connect system for online processing. With enforcement, we are considering, the scope of the license practice reminders. So just reminding the industry that an applicator can only perform within this scope of work, whereas a field rep can only perform within this scope of work. And then also providing information for consumers on the complaint process and what that looks like for them. And then also our process internally when it comes to processing what that whole process looks like. For WDO, we're considering providing updates again with the Connect system. And then with regards to outreach, we're looking at ideas for having a partner corner. So people from the industry or other agencies that we work closely with can have a section in our newsletter to give updates that are relative to either our industry or their industry as it relates to structural pest. Other things that we're considering, highlighting staff, field staff, so that the industry can get to know who's working at the board, and also including bios and highlights, and even some potential businesses as highlights. So with that, I think that is everything that I've covered. I also, I forgot to include on the social media portion, there was one other report that I forgot to mention, and that was the content statistics. And that report gives you a snapshot of what was posted to our accounts, the message, who the target audience is, and the analytics for that particular post across all platforms, and how it performs online. So with that, if you guys have any questions regards to social media, newsletter, I'm happy to take any questions. If not, we'll turn it back over to Heather.
I do have a question.
Thank you, guys. Go you soon.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, first of all, kudos to you, Christina, and everybody else that had a hand in this. As a communications professional, I know that it is no easy feat to launch a number of different, channels and content streams. So huge kudos to you all on that work. And I just was curious in terms of the social media pages, do we as a public, as a state board, have any limitations as it relates to putting money behind any posts? Do you know? And that's not, if you don't have that answer, if maybe that's something we could look into. I would just be curious if there's limitations on that end.
I do not have an answer for that, but I can look into it. I'm not sure if maybe Sabina would have any insight to that legally. If not, we can reach out to DCA's public affairs department and see kind of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. And the only reason I ask is because, as you know, there's just obviously some opportunities when we're able to, given, again, depending what our budget looks like in terms of everything else we have from an investment standpoint. But I'm always happy to be a resource for that as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
This is Sabina. Yeah, that's great. I would contact public affairs. they would be the person or the group to guide you on that. I also wanted to let you know that if you want to, if the staff wants to check out BBS and BBC, sorry, cosmetology and behavioral sciences have really active social media, and they've had high success with engaging with their licensee and applicant population through their social media. They just held also a virtual town hall. Barban and Cosmetology just held a virtual town hall. And BBS, Behavioral Sciences, also does things like Facebook Fridays, and they have certain topics that they answer questions about from applicants or from licensees. And so if staff and or board members, of course, want to check out those other boards' social media for other ideas or ways of doing things, they've had great success that way.
Thank you, Sabina.
Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Christina, for that. Yes, I think this is huge. I mean, I've been a licensee for 20 years now, and I don't know like the last time I got an email or what. I mean, I was never able to pay with a credit card online, or I didn't know the Structural Pest Board existed except for if I got some mail-in letter to renew something or whatnot. So I just want to remind like the members of the public or new board members, like this is like a huge step for us, not just like, oh, we've been doing it all along, we're just trying to upgrade. It's like completely brand new, like we were kind of stuck in the early 90s for a whole while there. So thank you guys. I think this is going to be amazing. Any comments from the board on outreach and communication or additional comments? Okay, can we open that to public to see if there's any comments?
We are now accepting public comment on agenda item 19. If you would like to make a comment, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're a dial-in user, please dial *3. You may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. We're going to take just a couple of seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. All right, we are on agenda item 20. We're just right at the end here, so bear with us. It's 1 o'clock and everyone's probably starving for lunch, but I figured instead of taking a lunch break, we'll be done here shortly. So item number 20, Executive Officer Report. I will turn this over to Sophia.
This will be pretty quick because I've separated out of my EO report the licensing update, the enforcement update, outreach update, and allowed the staff working in those units to present those items to you. So for staffing update, what I have, Greg Adams, which is a board specialist that has been with the board for many, many years. He's from the Los Angeles area. He is retiring effective August 2nd. So we are working hard to backfill that position as soon as possible. For the budget update, you have in attachment 1 your materials, the 23-24 governor's budget and 22-23 fiscal month 10 revenue and expenditure projections. It has been updated with the 21-22 prior year actual revenues and expenditures. We did end 21-22 with a fund balance reserve of $3.5 million, which is about over 6 months of reserve. Revenues projected to be at approximately $5.1 million, and $4.1 million of that from WDO activity. $898,000 in exam and license fees and license renewal fees. Our expenses, we are appropriated $7.1 million for 22-23, our current fiscal year. We do project to come in below that, so our expenditures are right, where they should be, if not under what we're appropriated. So everything looks great with the budget. I don't see any issues. We have a healthy fund reserve, so nothing really to report there other than that. Strategic plan. Attachment 2 in your materials provides a chart for each goal area, and it's showing the status where we are for each of the related objectives. So you can see from the report that we are moving ahead and making progress towards completing many of our goal areas. Considering that the plan is through the end of 2028, I believe we're really on track to meet most, if not all, of our deadlines. For board-funded research projects, Dr. Quinn is with University of California Agriculture and Natural Resources. Her research project is in phase 4. There is an attachment 3 in your materials with that she provided us on where she is with the research study. She did request recently, after these materials went out, an extension for 6 months to middle of 2024. So we do expect to have a final report to the board members at the end of next year. And that's all I have on the executive officer's report. Are there any questions?
I had a question. On the budget, I noticed that if things go as projected by the end of the 24-25 budget year, the reserve will be down to almost 0. Is that something that we should be talking about?
What I'm being told from the budget office is that our expenditures are never at the level that this is if we are fully spending what we're appropriated. And historically, we do not spend our full appropriation. And so this report that's prepared is giving you at full revenues projected and at full expenditures. So we don't think that that it accurately reflects where we're going to be in 24-25.
Is it possible to, at the September, October meeting, to get a report that shows what actual expenditures were for the 22-23 year versus what was budgeted, so that we can actually see that that's continuing to happen?
Yes. So at the October meeting, I can actually have the budget staff, DCA's budget office, provide a presentation to the board members. I don't think that that's happened with the new board members, and we can get more into depth on our expenditures and the revenue.
Okay, I'd ask that that be put on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was one of my comments, was just, the $2 million difference between the 7.1 million. We're bringing in 5.1, but we can spend 7.1. You said we're not spending that. What are we actually spending? Are we spending 5.1 and not 7.1? Are we spending 5.8 and we're collecting 700,000 less than what we're spending? I would love to know that. So I think that will take care of it from what Mark is asking. The next, I had a question on, so Greg is retiring. Right now, are we currently down 1 enforcement agent already? And now we're going to be down 2 enforcement agents?
No, what happened is the current enforcement specialist that position was reclassified right before I came on board. And I believe that was reclassified for the chief of licensing and admin. So we're down just Greg Adams' position when he vacates the position August 2nd. I have already directed staff to get the hiring process started. That has already gone to DCA's HR office so that we can try and have someone on board to start training right when he retires.
Okay, so we're just looking for we're going to be looking for one enforcement agent, and that is in the Los Angeles area. That's all we're looking for right now.
Yes.
Okay. And then
when
the last thing, because you brought up.
I'm sorry, one more thing. And when that position is posted, we will get that information out to the industry. We're going to utilize, all of the communication that we have available to get the information out, so that we have a good hiring pool. And then we're also going to get information out on the examination. And that is a continuous examination now. That was changed recently. So whereas before that exam was only given at certain times, now it's an ongoing continuous exam. So if anyone is interested in a structural pest control board specialist position, that would be the first step, is to take the examination. And then when there is the vacancy that's posted, they would then apply for the vacancy. And if we do get applicants that have not taken the exam, they still have time to take the examination.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And then last thing I just wrote down, and not to go, I don't want to go back into it, but on the Dr. Quinn, the research project, because it had got mentioned earlier, her stance is she is against AB 1322. I mean, maybe next time we.
I hesitate to say that. Okay. I'm hoping that she can be available for the October meeting to provide an update. We'll try and make it, we'll try to, even if she needs to, if it's an in-person meeting and she needs to connect virtually, we'll try to make that happen.
Okay, because it seems like, she's going to have more insight on that, right, and those questions we were asking to anybody, and the board's been paying for that research. So let's use that resource for sure.
And we can get, even prior to the board meeting, I did plan to get more information from her specifically to that bill.
Okay, perfect.
Sophia, on Dr. Quinn, is she on panel of consuls for any of the pest control companies or pest control board or something like that? So is there any sort of conflict of interest there? Other than the funding from the pest control board, is she receiving any other funding from other boards? Because it's sometimes could be a common practice in so many different areas. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other board members? Any other questions, comments on the executive officer's report?
Sorry to drag it out a little longer, but we talked about this. I remember when we were all in Claremont before Sophia came on. And at that time, the interim registrar was talking about how the inspection fees, the termite inspections were down and WDO, funds were down. And we were talking about it then. So that was a year ago. Well, all of us, if you follow California real estate, or even, me being a termite business owner, the real estate market is very, very different right now. There's just nobody wants to sell, because why are they going to give up their 3% interest rate to go buy something? It's kind of stagnant right now. And I heard a comment from a realtor that the only business they're getting is if somebody dies, somebody divorces, or somebody relocates. So with that said, I think we need to.
Janet, I'll disagree to that, because I'm a commercial real estate investor and big time into commercial real estate. I'll disagree with that, but I'll let you continue. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, well, I'm living it. So, and my daughter's a realtor, but it's a different market. How's that? I'm not saying we're slow with inspections. It's not like it has been when the market was crazy and everybody was refinancing. And now people are settled with their perfect interest rates. My point leading up to this is I'm concerned that so much of our revenue is dependent on the WDO reports. What happens if things get worse? We went, I don't know, what percentage did you say we were down, Sophia? 13%?
13%. Mm-hmm.
So we, out of a $5.1 million revenue, 4.1 comes from termite inspections and 900,000 comes from licensing. So I don't have the answer today, but I don't think we should just sit by and watch this happen. Maybe we need to get money from branch 1, money from branch 2. I mean, renewing, 2 of my employees just renewed their applicator's license. For 3 years, the fee was $10. It seems like there's room to raise some license renewal fees, and I just am worried about our future budget. That's all.
So we do, that is one of our objectives in our strategic plan. And it is something that is trying to see what date we had set for that. And I don't have that in front of me right now, but we are planning a feasibility study. And we're going to look at the fee structure for the entire board, the revenue structure, and hopefully have something sooner than later to you as far as a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Janet. I had already written it on agenda item 21. I know we've talked about it in the past. And yeah, I mean, how does a $10 million pest company pay $1,000 a year in fees to the structural pest control board, and a $600,000 termite company pays $10,000 a year in fees to the board that oversees them? It's crazy on how lopsided it is. So yes, I think it's either whether it's a future agenda item, we discuss it then, or if the staff is looking into it. I'm glad you brought that up again, Janet. Anything else from the board on the executive officer report before we open it to the public? Can we open it to the public, please?
We are now accepting public comment on the matter. If you'd like to make a comment, please tap that hand button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. Dial-in users will need to dial *3 to raise a hand. You may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. We're going to take just a couple of seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. So agenda item 21 is future agenda items. I think we were just kind of discussing one. So is there any other, do board members have any other items they'd like to see on future agenda?
I do. If we could add, somehow I missed this agenda, but to discuss revisiting regulations to enhance out-of-state qualifying manager renewal requirements and verification process, as well as bait station enforcement. Maybe we could add to get some data on that for the bait station enforcement.
Yes. Staff, did you guys pick that up?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any clarification on that you need?
John and I have talked about this before. I think I'm good with clarification.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other future agenda items from board members?
Kyle, we talking about the next meeting, whether we were going to do virtual or in person, I thought. It said we'd talk about that at the end of this meeting. Or are we set on being in person? What's the scoop?
So for the next meeting, if you decide the Bagley-Keene is back to the way it was prior to COVID on July 1. So we were moving forward with October being in person in Sacramento, and maybe having, the option, if you couldn't attend in person, you would have to notice that your address, whatever location that you're at on the agenda.
Do we have the room? I know it was we had to reserve a specific room to be able to do that, the hybrid part. Do we have that room? Can we do that?
I don't think we have it yet, but I'll make sure we're able to do that.
Okay.
And I'm willing to do whatever is decided. I just thought that was something that we were kind of going over yesterday. Is that October 10th and 11th? 10th only? What's the scoop? What's the date? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we move forward with a hybrid meeting where we have it in Sacramento and ones that can't attend. I mean, we haven't had a meeting like that yet. So I would love to move forward with that and see how that process works, where it's an in-person meeting and those that can't make it can virtually log in for the convenience and travel and all that. We've either done one or the other. We've never had a hybrid. So I would love to see a hybrid meeting if that's okay with everyone and see how that process works. Okay, I'm not hearing any comments, so I'm guessing everyone's okay with that. Because yeah, I would say after the hybrid, if it's unsuccessful and we're like, hey, just everybody being on WebEx was more successful, then we'll do a lot more of those. I know we discussed, at least once a year trying to be in person, having a meeting. But I think we'll all decide as a board what we want to do. But I think the hybrid I would like to see happen in October, just to see how that transpires and how that works out. Okay, any other comments from board before I open up to the public for future agenda items? Okay, can we open that up to the public, please?
We are now accepting public comment on future agenda items. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users may dial *3 to raise a hand. You may also type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and send that comment to all participants. We're going to wait just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. So agenda item 22, this will make everyone's stomachs happy because it's time for lunch. It's adjournment. So I just want to thank everyone. This was a very successful meeting. I'm kind of glad I wasn't looking forward to 2 days of board meetings, but I mean, I think to be able to spread it out and actually not have to rush through things and to go down some of these topics that John and Mark and Anchor and all of us brought up, I think that was awesome to be able to discuss those more. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, public. Jim, that was some insightful stuff. Bindal, do you have, you're on mute, so we can't hear you right now. If you're talking, you're on mute. You're laughing by yourself.
I was unmuted. I was muted. I unmuted myself. Do we have a holiday party by any chance in December that we all get together with? I'm actually excited about that. It's off record question, so. Do we have something like that as a part of like we all can get together, like DCA maybe? I don't know. Sophia?
I would love that. How's that?
We do actually in the office do something during the holidays, and I'll make sure to extend that invitation to the board members.
Oh, perfect. But do we have a DCA level?
No, no. They usually the boards and bureaus do things
separately,
individually. Yeah,
okay.
Nothing that's just one DCA as a whole.
So that's okay.
Although
perfect.
That would be nice.
Yeah, I think it would be more cost effective for the whole DCA to do it as a unit. It's just a question. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I would love that as well. So maybe we'll try to figure that out. Sabina can point us in the right direction on how we do that legally. So All right. Well, yeah. Thank you, everybody, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you guys. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.